Welcome, everyone, to Statement Saturday, the Sun Belt's home on the United Football Media Network YouTube page. Bobby, we're back. We're doing it a second episode. We like doing it so much the first time. We're coming back for seconds. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, Webb. Excited to be back on. Hope everybody enjoyed that first episode.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a long one. We knew it was going to be long because it's the first time being on air, going back and forth. But leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, follow Bobby on Twitter. What's your Twitter again?
TNT College Foot 1.
Listen to his podcast. It's on Spotify. He's breaking down every single team. What team are you? Where are you at in that list right now?
I just did Colorado. I will be posting the Cal Golden Bears next.
All right, and Sunbelt, it's coming fast, right?
It is.
All right. I can't wait for those episodes. Those are going to be my favorite, I'm sure.
Mid to late August.
All right. Well, hey man, I can't believe it's August 3rd. My kids went back to school today. Today, so it's fall for me. So I'm ready for football now.
It's coming.
Well, we're going to start our previews. The next 3 weeks, we split the teams up into three different groups: the have-nots, the questions, and the haves. Tonight, we start with the have-nots. You ready to go?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. Old Dominion Monarchs, 3-9 last year, 2-6 in the conference. Ricky Ron comes back for his third season, right? Third.
Yep.
He's in a tough spot right now, I would say. I don't think he's got the hottest seat in the conference, but it's warm. It's not ice cold. 4 questions. Let's see what you got for answers. Jason Henderson, and who else is on that defense? Because that guy had a million quadrillion tackles last year. Is someone else going to step up for this defense?
They got another linebacker to go with him, and so it's going to be interesting with him. He does so much for them. It's unbelievable everything that he does for them and for that offense or for that defense. I'm sorry. Yeah. But they got one other linebacker who intrigues me, and it's EJ Green. So the guy running again with him, I believe EJ Green's got to really pick it up. But they got other things that they got to worry about from a defensive perspective. Their secondary they only return 1 of 5 starters. Their defensive line, they only got 1 of 4 back. So they're going to rely on Henderson and Green a lot defensively.
Yeah, definitely. But it rolls right into topic number 2, time of possession battle. That defense couldn't get off the field. Mm-hmm. He did have 180 tackles or whatever he had last year, but that defense was on the field the most in the entire nation. Mm-hmm. That defense has to get better, right? You said lose 4 out of 5 starters in the secondary. That's fine as long as they're getting off the field, right? So it might be an upgrade for them. What do you think about? Are they going to get better on defense, or is the offense going to help them out a little bit and not have the best punter in the land, which he is nominated for the Guy Trophy? So,
well, I think the offense can really help. They were not very strong rushing the football, 124th nationally. So, I mean, staying on the field, getting positive yards, rushing the football, getting 3 or 4 yards per carry to get first downs is going to be huge. If they're going to be in the bottom 10 rushing offense in the country still, that's really going to hurt them. And I think with the additions that they've made, they should be able to do that a little bit better. They have a huge addition at running back. Kadarius Callaway, who Phil Steele actually ranked him the number 5 JUCO running back in the country coming in this year. So that's a big time addition for them. Yeah. And I think he's going to be able to really help that. But looking at it from a defensive perspective, with the guys, maybe it's addition by subtraction, like you said. I mean, losing some of the players that they lost. I know that they've made some significant additions via the portal. But as always, those guys have to gel, and it'll probably take a little bit of time.
Definitely. Talking about gel, they got a new quarterback. We'll have a theme in this show today: quarterbacks and offensive line. Their offensive line is decimated, and they got a brand new quarterback. Is Grant Wilson the guy, or is there still a battle to go on?
It looks like Grant Wilson and Jack Shields are battling it out. Wilson coming in from Fordham, put up some pretty decent numbers at the FCS level. Shields hasn't seen time yet, so it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays itself out. I personally think it's going to be Wilson just because he has the experience factor, and I'm big on the offensive line, defensive line winning in the trenches, and if you can't do that, you're going to struggle. I don't care who the quarterback is. You're going to have issues if you can't win in the trenches.
Talking about winning, over and under is 3.5 games. Do you see 3.5 games on this schedule? Virginia Tech, that's a loss, right?
Right. I think it has to be. Virginia Tech has to be motivated to win that
Louisiana,
game after last year.
Louisiana,
you get them at home, so there's a possibility. Yeah, you get them early and at home. There's a possibility.
Wake Forest, that's a negative, right? I don't care if Sam Hartman's gone.
Right.
Texas A&M Commerce, that's possible. That's one.
I would hope. Yeah, I would
that's
hope.
One.
Yeah.
Marshall, no.
At
Southern Miss, I don't see it.
No.
James Madison, I don't see it.
No.
Or I'm sorry, Appalachian State, I still don't see it. I know it's at home, but I still don't see it. James Madison, no. Coastal, no. Liberty.
I think Liberty's going to be pretty decent this year, so I would say no.
Okay. Georgia Southern?
No.
At Georgia Southern? No. Georgia State? Possibly. We'll get to Georgia State later, but
yeah,
I say for them to get there, they have to be able to beat Liberty, because to get to 4 wins, I don't see 4 wins on the not, or they're definitely not winning Wake and Virginia Tech. So if they go 2-2 on the out of conference, maybe they have a shot at getting to 4, but I don't see it. I think if they beat Southern Miss, they're probably at 5 or 6 wins, close to a bowl. That's a good season win for me. If they get to that Georgia, okay.
I agree. I mean, if they win at Southern Miss, I think that means that they would beat Louisiana at home early and possibly Georgia State late.
Yep.
But I, like you, I think that just looking at it at face value right now, I have to go under. I just don't. There's only one game on the schedule where I see them winning, and it's the one we mentioned, Texas A&M Commerce.
Yep.
Other than that, it's difficult for them.
So if they only have one win, Ricky Ron coming back for season 4 or no?
If it's just one win, I can't imagine. But I am personally a fan of him and that staff. I hope that the administration is patient with them. But I also understand, I mean, you got to win football games. That's the name of the game, and you got to do it. And if you're not doing it, and then you got to go elsewhere and see what you can do, because they're in one of the best recruiting areas around, so they should be good.
They definitely should be. Talking about recruiting in the best areas, we go to our next school, Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. Recruiting in Louisiana is a gold mine every day. Mm-hmm. It's I think it's the best area outside Georgia. From Georgia to Texas is a great area to recruit. Louisiana is so fertile. They went 4-8 last year, 3-5. Kind of a miraculous season, in my opinion, because I thought they had the worst roster last year. Terry Bowden comes back for his 3rd season. 4 questions. What is this program's identity?
That's a great question. And I think that they're still trying to figure that out. I mean, Terry Bowden's one of those guys. He's a former walk-on at Auburn, really undersized. So I think he just wants his teams to be super scrappy, hard-nosed, kind of like he was as just a walk-on player who just worked his butt off. And I think that's what he's trying to do here. And I think that's what he has to do, because like we talked about last week, they're a program where they get guys, those guys get good, and then they get poached, I guess you can say, away to bigger programs. And when we saw that this year, they lost some very significant players to the transfer portal, to bigger P5 programs. And I'm a big fan of Terry Bowden. I think he's a great person, first of all, but from a coaching perspective, he's done a great job. And I think we all agree this is the hardest job in the country.
Yep.
And I think they just have to find ways to just outclaw people to victories. And the past couple years, they've done, I think, as good as they possibly can at that. I mean, like you said, 4-8 and 3-5 in the conference last year is pretty darn good. And then they had an opportunity even down the stretch to make bowl eligibility, which there is pretty miraculous.
It definitely is. I don't know. As a kid, I used to play NCAA football, and I always ended up at University of Louisiana Monroe. I at least started there. I like to start with the small programs.
Yep.
And even in that game, it was unless you put on like rookie level, it was tough to recruit people to Monroe, even though you were in a nice fertile base. And I think Terry Bowden's living what was my video game, his real.
Yeah.
And he's created identity. And like you said, it's hardworking. The question I got for you, Tyrone Howell, you mentioned him last week. He's one of the best receivers. How did he keep Tyrone Howell? That's what I want to know, because they don't have a quarterback situation sorted out. I know they got a transfer. It's not like they had a high-powered offense and Howell was just a standout in a very pedestrian offense. How did he keep Howell?
That's a great question. He must really like Coach Bowden or like the system or whatever it may be, but he is a heck of a football player. I'm a big fan of his. I love watching him play, and maybe he wants to be that guy there, and he certainly is that guy.
Next question. Can the defense create turnovers? They were one of the worst in the country last year at creating turnovers. They caused fumbles, but I believe they only recovered 3 out of the 15 fumbles. When they won their 4 games, they created, I believe, like 95% of the turnovers they created for the rest of the season, the whole season. So the 5% in the other 8 games is just, you're never going to win the turnover battle if you do that.
Right.
Is there anyone on the team that you see maybe helping out the turnover battle? Maybe the defense? Who's standing out on the Warhawks defense?
They only got 4 starters back on defense, so it's going to be rough again. I really like defensive end Kennard Snyder. I think he's a pretty good football player. But again, your defensive end, how many turnovers are you getting forced at that position? They got to get things figured out in the secondary, and they could struggle again. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, talking about Kennard Snyder. So we're doing this countdown. I think I might have told you.
Yeah. Yep.
ULM did not put out his proper, his little, his individual for the graphics, right, for ESPN.
Right.
So I'm taking it off ESPN. I'm taking off the website, the college website, and they put the wrong one. So I put the wrong guy out there, and he messaged me so politely, and he's like, "Hey, I'm just letting you know, this is not me. This is my former teammate. This is not me. He's not even a kid that goes to the school anymore." And I was like, "What?" Like, and he's like, "Yeah, someone messed up, and they just kept it. They never changed it." So I felt so bad for it. I got Ace from the United Football Media to make him a graphic, and he loved it. And he's got a fan.
Awesome.
He's got a fan in me for the rest of his life. So I hope he creates a lot of forced fumbles coming off the edge. So I agree with you on that. All right, the next 2 questions kind of roll together. So he's 3.5 is the over and under. Where is the first question is, where is the Terry Bowden special on the schedule where he beats a team where no one sees coming? And over and under 3.5, do they get to the magic 4? What do you think?
Well, that first game against Army's got a new offense that they're inputting. And they're still going to be a triple option team, but they're going out of the shotgun now. So I think it's going to take Army some time to gel offensively. So I look at that game as a potential upset opportunity, I guess we could say. I really feel that they can get that game. And that game's on NFL Network. I don't know if that many people have heard that,
Yeah.
But I'm excited about that. I think they have a real opportunity there. And then looking at the rest of their schedule, I mean, they do have winnable games. Or they play some of the tougher games at home. I guess I can say they host App State. I don't see them beating South Alabama or Troy, but I mean, you can beat Arkansas State at home. Obviously, they should beat Lamar. At Texas State is a winnable game, even for them, and they beat Louisiana last year. So there's an opportunity there as well. I really feel that they're going to get over that 3.5 win mark and get to 4, maybe even 5 wins. I mean, if they beat Army, I could see something headed in the right direction for them.
Another game I want to kind of highlight, and I know this is going to sound crazy, the Troy game. So they catch Troy the week after they play South Alabama, and South Alabama plays Troy on a Thursday night. They get Troy 10 days later or whatever the math is. Troy could be licking their wounds. They might be overconfident. They might see Troy at the perfect time on the 11th of November.
That's a great point.
And that's the Terry Bowden special. I think you're right about Texas State. They could beat Texas State. I think they could knock off Georgia Southern. Even come in here because of Georgia Southern's got a tough October, which we'll get to in the next coming weeks. But they get them right in the middle of October, coming to town. You know, you might be looking to Coastal, or you might be looking to App State, or App State's last, but James Madison. You got all these tough games, and you throw in a little ULM, they could steal a win. I think you're right about Army. I think they catch Army at a perfect time. To get to 4, they have to beat Army. I really believe that.
Yeah.
They beat Lamar, and Terry Bowden's going to win 3 conference games. So that's 5. So that's the reason why Army is a must win, and then Terry Bowden's going to win 2 or 3 conference games. I think they get to the 4, personally. But
absolutely, I do too.
The more I talk about ULM, the more I become a fan of the Warhawks even more. So that could be partly my fault. On to the next team. One of the hottest seats, probably second hottest in my opinion. I don't know about yours. Belongs to Butch Jones with the Wolves of Arkansas State. 3-9, 1-7 in the conference. Last place in the West last year. It's year 3. We talked about it last week. Corey Rucker, he returns. He was with Arkansas State 2 years ago. Went to Columbia to go play at South Carolina. Came back. What are your thoughts on Mr. Rucker?
He's a heck of a football player, and I think he realized what a good amount of transfer guys see is the grass isn't always greener on the other side. When you get to that big school, there's a lot you got to work for. And I'm not saying by any means or trying to hint to the fact that he wasn't willing to work hard or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. He was at the right spot. And I think he realized that and I think he's going to have a very productive year. They have some good wide receivers here, and they could have a productive offense passing the football like they've had in the past for quite some time. That we could go on and on about that, but it's going to come down to quarterback play this year. What are they going to get? I think JT Shrout is a guy who can really, really do some things for them. He started 8 games at Tennessee during his time there from 2018 to 2020, started 7 games last year at Colorado. So I think now that they have a quarterback who's kind of been there and done that, we can say it can really help like Corey Rucker and the rest of their receivers really produce.
Definitely. And I think it blends it with the year 3 of Butch Jones because that system is finally settled in 100%. Well, it's supposed to be. Stroud comes in highly recruited for a school like Arkansas State, bigger name. You know, he played in the Pac-12. He played in the SEC. Some would question if the Pac-12 is a power conference anymore, but last year it was. And Corey Rucker coming in, I think he's one of the best receivers in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
They were last in offense last year. They have to improve that. They were last in the yardage last year. They were 10th in the Sun Belt in scoring. The offense has to kick up. Like you said, this is traditionally a school that is a bunch of fireworks. That's actually the reason why
Right.
I chose this picture in the background, because they are usually gung-ho, ready to go up and down the field. Let's go. We talked about it last week with their previous coaches. Butch Jones needs to find that magic for Jonesboro, or he's probably going to be looking for another job.
Yep. I
Over and
agree. I
under.
think
Yeah, go ahead.
I definitely think his seat is extremely hot, and kind of like what you were saying. I mean, 127th in rushing offense, 117th in total offense. Obviously, isn't getting it done anywhere, but especially at a program like this.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. So Arkansas State is that second program in their state in the South. Typically, schools have, like, Georgia has Georgia Tech, and Georgia kind of, or South Carolina has Clemson and South Carolina. North Carolina has NC State and all those other schools.
Yeah, that's a million.
Arkansas's got the Razorbacks and then the Wolves. That's what they have. So the money is going there. They want to see a winner. Arkansas's got the Razorbacks have a tough climb in the SEC West. So this is where they hang their hat as an Arkansasian. I'm not 100% sure how that one is, but Butch Jones has to win this year. The over and under is 4.5. For me, the over and under for his job to be saved, I believe it's 6. I believe that he has to get to a bowl game for him to be able to coach next year for the Red Wolves. Talking about the over and under 4.5 games. Oklahoma, no, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, if Brett Venables wants to keep his job,
Memphis, maybe.
maybe. Memphis has a really good offense, though.
Stony Brook, yes. There's one.
Absolutely.
Southern Miss, maybe.
Maybe.
At UMass, yes.
They need to win it. UMass is improved, but they should win.
At Troy, probably not.
Probably not.
Coastal, probably not.
Probably not.
But they get Coastal at home. I will say that.
Yeah. There's that.
ULM, maybe. That's 3.
Maybe. Yeah.
Louisiana, maybe. I think they can knock off Louisiana.
Absolutely.
South Alabama, no.
No.
Texas State, yeah.
Yeah.
That's 5.
Yep.
I would say a solid 3 right now, and that's probably the reason why the over and under is 4.5, because there is a solid 3, 4. Vegas knows what they're doing with that. Like I said, must win for them to get to a bowl game and to beat the 4.5. They have to beat Texas State. It's late in the year. You know what Texas State is at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you are. You got to be able to beat Texas State at home to be able to have a good season, or to at least get to 4.5 wins. You have to.
Right.
I think they beat UMass. I think they beat Stony Brook. I think they can beat Memphis. It's not a guarantee. They only really have 2 solid wins on there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to go with over as well. I mean, looking at this schedule, there's winnable games at home, like we just been talking about. And I mean, there is an opportunity for them to go to a bowl game with the games that they have at home. And even like the road games they have going to ULM, that's winnable. Going to Marshall, South Alabama, and Troy is tough, but could they maybe sneak one of those if they're clicking at the right time? Maybe. Like you said, I mean, Coastal is probably not, but they could. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be mind-blowing if they won that game. So I firmly believe that they're over 4.5, and it wouldn't blow my mind if they got to a bowl.
Definitely. Talking about a team that definitely needs to go to a bowl game.
Yes.
Sean Elliott and Georgia State Panthers. They went 4-8 last year, 3-5. Every close game they lost. They had North Carolina on the ropes. We talked about it last week. They've had tons of schools on the ropes, and they just couldn't close the deal. It was stupid mistakes. It was boneheaded coaching decisions. It was just a mix of everything, not executing. This guy is on the hottest seat, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
We'll start right there. The hottest seat in Atlanta belongs to Sean Elliott. Do you think he survives past this year?
I personally don't think so. I don't want to hint too much into my moment of heat with it, but I don't see them faring well in the non-conference slate, which I think might surprise some people. But I question their identity as a football team. And I know at media day, he was talking about player-led, player-driven, and I'm a former college head coach. Yes, you want your players to be the ones leading everything, but that's also a way of a coach saying when it's not player-led that he's like, okay, you guys need to do it because I'm not doing it correctly, clearly, so that's the big question marks I have. And then what you brought up in the introduction for them with the mistakes that they made last season, not only from playing perspective, but there were some real coaching questions and blunders that you just were head scratching that really made you think like, okay, what's going on here? And to lose so many close games, that to me says more than anything else. That to me, that's not player issues. That's a coaching problem.
Execution.
Yes.
Execution falls on the coach 100%. Talking about their team, Granger, Darren Granger, is he the only person on offense that's worth mentioning today?
Before I did research on them, I would have said yes, but they have some decent running backs actually, and Marcus Carroll and KZ Adams, who should be able to do some things rushing the football. Then of course you add Granger in there as well with his dual threat ability, and they do have some decent wide receivers, and Robert Lewis who averaged over 17 yards per catch, and then Josias Cradle. And then they add Jakari Carter from FCS Merrimack. So I think that there's some pieces there where they could really do some things offensively, but they have some real issues on the offensive line. And like I said before, I'm big on winning in the trenches, and I really question their offensive line.
Fair enough. Are they a passing offense or a rushing offense, though?
I think they're definitely going to be a rushing offense. They were 14th nationally in rushing and 101st in passing last year. And I think that falls a little bit on Granger because of the way that he plays a bit. But I think with the wide receivers they have back that they'll try to look to do a little bit more. But is Granger going to be accurate enough to get the ball to where it needs to be for those guys? I personally think they need to be more of an intermediate passing attack than he tends to like the deep ball a little bit more than I feel he should.
He's an all or nothing kind of quarterback.
Yeah.
He just looks for big plays the entire time. I can't agree more with you on the Georgia State outlook, really. But 5.5 wins. You said you got a hot take. Don't spoil it all and wait for a moment of heat. But do you see 5.5 wins, 6 wins on the schedule?
I don't. I really don't. I think they beat Rhode Island. I think that's pretty apparent. But I think every other game on the schedule, you can honestly sit there and say is a potential for a loss. Yes, winning at Old Dominion, they should do that. But by the end of the year, where will Georgia State be? Could they just be completely down and almost given up at that point? Or will they be playing for something? And then they get some good East opponents at home, James Madison and App State. But I think both of those teams are superiorly talented than Georgia State. So I personally don't see it.
Either do I. I completely agree with it. Rhode Island's definitely a win. UConn, you say no. It could be a win. UConn's probably on the rise while they're falling, but it could be. At Charlotte, I think you're right about it. I think Charlotte's on the rise a little bit more than Georgia State. And they're catching Charlotte at home in Charlotte. LSU, the other non-conference, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina, they're on the teal turf, no way. Troy, no. Marshall, no. All of their home games, the entire year, are against teams that are better than them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I could say that very confidently. I think their easiest games are on the road.
I agree. The one thing I will say about Coastal, though, is the last time they played at Coastal 2 years ago, they won. And Granger is from that area. So he plays really well there in front of his family and friends and everybody who comes to the game. So I will say there is probably more of an opportunity for them to win that game than most people would think.
Fair enough. All right, so we did the have-nots. Next week is question marks. Are you ready for some heat?
Let's bring it.
You got some heat with your heat last week. So you think you're going to be able to outdo it?
We'll see.
All right. Moment of heat on Statement Saturday. This is where we say our hot take. I went first last week, right? I believe I did.
Yeah.
You go first this week. So the even episodes, you're going to go first. The odd episodes, I'll go first. You're up, Bobby. Go.
All right. Well, I think we hinted towards this towards the end of Georgia State there, but I say Georgia State loses at home to UConn and then at Charlotte. I think UConn is immensely improved and on the rise as a program. They have great leadership with Jim Mora and some fantastic players. Then I also think Charlotte is on the rise very quickly. I am a big fan of Biff Poggi and the culture that he's creating there. I think is something that is going to be pretty darn good moving forward.
All right. I don't think we previewed the worst team in the West yet, the Sun Belt West yet. I don't think the worst team is ULM or Arkansas State. We'll get to it. I'm not giving it away because I'm trying to save it for the next episode. Maybe a little hook there. But I believe Terry Bowden will get the wins to get out of the cellar like he did last year. He went 3-5 in this conference. I think he'll figure it out. He's a great coach. I think Butch Jones is going to have a bounce back year. Enough to get out of the cellar. Do I think he saves his job? I don't know. But the team and we'll get to it, we haven't previewed it. There will be a team that falls below both these teams. And then we'll be looking back on how we graded these teams, the have-nots, question marks, and the haves, and be like, you know what? Maybe we should have put them in the have-nots and moved Arkansas State into the question marks. Or maybe the haves. Maybe it's a surprise one in the haves. Probably not, but it could be. But that is my take. I think Butch Jones gets to 4, 5, 6 wins, which will get him out of the cellar. And Terry Bowden is such a good coach, and you hit the nail on the head when we talked about the team. He he gets the most out of his players.
Absolutely.
Every single down. All his players could transfer out all he wants. Guess what? He's going to coach the next guys. They want to be ready for the transfer. And maybe he becomes a transfer portal you know, in basketball, Calipari and Coach K, they embrace that one and done kind of thing. Maybe Terry Bowden does that. You know what? I'm going to get these guys that maybe are 2-3 stars, and I'll coach them up and live off of that, really. So maybe that's his identity. Maybe we talked about this program's identity. Maybe that's the program's identity. It's kind of a stepping stone, almost like a JUCO, but really in FBS level. Who knows? Man, it was fun.
Great place to do it.
Yeah, it is a great place to do it. I love talking Sun Belt football, man. I appreciate it. This was a good episode.
Yes.
If anyone leave a comment, like, subscribe. TNT College Football Podcast on Spotify and anywhere you can get your podcast, correct?
Yep.
I got it on Google, so you don't get the Spotify analytics from me. Sorry. I'm a Google guy.
You're listening. That's all that matters to me.
Next week, the question marks. I think we got a real interesting conversation next week with a couple of the teams because I think when we broke it down, it was probably the most exciting group for me because, like, we know the haves. I really think so. I think a lot of people could peg these have-nots, but these question marks, I think some, like, I could tell you one of those teams from the SEC or Sun Belt West should be in the have-nots, but we kind of went with a stereotypical one. I wasn't going to argue with it. We'll argue with it next week.
Sounds good.
All right, man, Bobby. Where can we find you on Twitter before we go?
At TNT College Foot 1.
Okay. On Twitter, follow me, Statement Sat, SAT. On Twitter, follow me on UFM Web for all of my football content. Instagram, I'm trying to get on Instagram. I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm too old. I don't know. I just like Twitter a little bit more.
I personally struggle with Instagram too. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, like I can make pictures and that's nice, but like if I want info, I'm going to Twitter or X, whatever you call it nowadays.
Right.
But follow all the United Football Media content. We got great USFL shows. This show, we got an NFL show in the works, which should be exciting. Thanks, Bobby.